Welcome to the first episode of AfriGO Conversations in 2022. A very happy new year to you, and it's my hope that the year has started on a good note. Our topic for today is vocation as mission. How are you using your skills, or how can you use your skills as a missionary? Do you know any missionary that is using their skill or their training in the mission field? Well, we do. And we have one with us today. Stephen Nitte has been a missionary in Niger for quite a while. And he's going to talk to us about his vocation and how that has helped him in missions. Welcome, Stephen. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Mercy. Privileged to be part of AfriGO's Conversations for the year 2020. I think I happen to be the first. That's a good privilege. And thank you so much for hosting me on this platform.
That's wonderful. 1 Peter 4:10 tells us to use whatever gifts we have received to serve others as faithful stewards in various forms. As we start our topic today and as we have this chat with you today, we would like to know, how are you called into missions? How did you end up as a missionary? Can you talk to us about that?
Well, that's a good question, Mercy. Thank you for asking that. So my calling into missions, Christian missions and cross-cultural missions started about 8 years ago. Well, I would say earlier than that. My quest to, pursuing satisfaction or finding meaning and purpose to life led me to finding a true satisfaction in the person of Christ Jesus. That was in the year 2010. And that was my first year in medical college. And I was just wondering, this is the beginning of a new phase in my life. What will it look like in the next few years? What am I going to be doing? It should be obvious that since I'm in the university studying medical laboratory science as a course, that should tell me that I'll be working in a hospital, in the lab, with people, with other people who are called into the medical sciences field to manage cases from patients. But then something very striking happened, or what I would call a conviction. It was my first year, but then I felt like something is still missing. Why am I here? And I started asking questions. I started praying and asking God because I'd become a Christian newly, and I was still confused, and I needed nurturing. I needed someone to guide me in my decisions. And so I thank God for bringing some people across my path on campus who were there to help, through the campus fellowships there. And I finally had the answer, because I wanted to know what my life would look like in school and after school. And then I felt like God is calling me to use my training and skills after school. It was not really clear because I didn't fully understand it, but there were many questions, of course, and also was kind of scared to share that with my friends or any other person, because it was not a usual thing for people to say that. And said it to a few of my friends, and they said, that's not true. We are all here to get trained, get qualified, and then we get a good job, and then there you go, live your life. But for me, there was something missing, and I wanted to find that which was missing. And I felt it wouldn't be satisfying if this is just all that I'm called to do or proposed to do. I need something that will give me a better purpose that is fulfilling, And so I held on to the fact that, yes, God, you're going to use my training and skills after these years in serving others. I didn't know how or where, but I focused on how God will build me on campus while studying, and how he'll be able to use me still on campus, serving him there. So I realized that God has brought me on campus not only to be a student, but to also be a missionary, or to be a servant on campus. And how did that happen? I discovered that God has given me a gift of understanding. So I have knowledge and wisdom of some certain science subject and all that. And some people discovered me, and she started calling me to come and teach them, in a class of 40, 30, sometimes 70 or more. And I would stand there 3 hours, 4 hours teaching them what they were taught but didn't understand. And they'll find it fulfilling. They'll find that they have totally come to understand some of those courses. And for me, it was a little bit satisfying to see others really being, served in that way. But God questioned me. He said, well, this is the reason why I brought you here. But the main goal is so that you can introduce me to them. And I said, oh yes, now this is the missing piece. I needed to really align myself to what God is doing in and through me on campus. So I told him, I'm ready, I want to do that, but you need to teach me how. So each time I go and they call me to teach, and I'll tell them, hey, let's pray, and we will pray. And sometimes there are believers, some of them are Christians, some of them are not Christians, but we will pray in the name of Jesus, and then we will start the class. And after the class, we'll also pray. And sometimes I will inject and tell them, look, in order for us to really understand this, we really have to trust God and how he can help us understand some of that. And so after the class, some people will meet me and say, how do you know all these? And sometimes we don't grab anything from the lecturers or the professors, but how do you know all this? And I tell them, well, I think I have a gift, and that gift is what is helping. And that gift is given to me by God. And they'll say, wow, that is truly a gift, So I started introducing them on fellowship on campus and asking them to just allow God to use them while they're here on campus. And it's not just about them, but about what God wants to do through them in life. And so many of them accepted to go to different fellowships on campus. And the testimony has it, even after a few years before I graduated, or right after I graduated, one of the set invited me. One of the testimonies is that they were grateful to God that he brought me on their path, that they were able to learn a few things, not only about sciences, but about him himself. And now they are graduates and all that, and they will continue doing that wherever they find themselves.
Thank you, Stephen, for, I think that has been really good to hear about your schooling and how you helped your fellow students in their classwork, and you discovering, I have a gift, I understand this. I don't know if your school system is like where I am, but most of us found ourselves at the university studying things that we didn't necessarily really apply for, and some of us probably studied things that we would have not chosen. How did you choose your vocation? Did you want to be a medical lab technician?
Oh, I didn't choose to study medical laboratory science. I was actually planning or desired to study medicine to become a doctor, but after applying several times, the university of my choice, I couldn't get admitted because it's highly competitive, and tried other schools as well. I couldn't get admitted into medicine. Not that I wasn't good enough or what, because there's so many other people who are eligible for the same course. But like I said, it works with quota systems and works with so many other reasons for choosing only few candidates into that program. But especially for Christian students, most of us sometimes don't get to be picked because of our faith in Christ. If you're in the northern part of Nigeria, because of other schools will rather have other people, join the program than Christian students. So that is one of the challenges that we had, or that I had, while trying to seek admission into the university. And so at a point in the school, I was given to study another course, and I told myself, this is not what I want. This is not what I'm planning to do with my life, or spend the rest of my life doing this. And so I started praying for God to help me for another option. And God led me to to apply for medical laboratory science. And when I heard about the course, I never knew much about it anyway. But when I heard about the course, I was so happy. I felt peace. I said, oh, I guess this is what God really has prepared me to do, or to study as a course in the university. And so I applied and was admitted, and I came right away with an open mind to learn and to become useful. And it just occurred to me that, oh, well, it's medical sciences. We have different disciplines, different programs. And so for this reason, being a medical laboratory scientist or medical laboratory technologies, it will just fit into the team of people who are helping save lives in the hospital. And so I found my fitting where I can be part of the team in helping the needy, especially those who are sick and are coming for medical attention in the hospital.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for that. And now you have studied medical laboratory tech. You are now a medical lab technician, and you're finishing your course, and you have felt God calling you to do more than just test people for pathogens. How does your family take that? So you go and tell them, I think I want to be a missionary. How did that go?
Yeah, so after my first training in medical laboratory science, you said I was qualified as a medical laboratory technologist, and was to just literally look for a job or further my studies into whatever desired discipline that I wanted to measure in or qualify practice. And so when I graduated, the thought of doing all that came, and I was planning towards that. But then the quest, like I said, of seeking for God's purpose in my life and meaning led to my calling, which is now my vocation as a medical missionary and serving cross-culturally. So first when I told a few people in my family, I think I would say about 80% of them didn't take it right, and the reaction was not good because they didn't expect that from me. It was not like they were prepared or knew that I was developing myself towards this calling as a missionary. And so they felt this is not the right decision. I should make another decision. I should think again. And others felt like, oh, this is a welcome idea. You want God to use you in this area using your training. So why not just seek God's clarification or direction in this? If He's truly calling you to do this, then He will guide you in the process. And I really felt encouraged by the 20% of them who actually started praying and was calling to know how the journey is going. And today, I'm a medical missionary with SIM, and that's also trained in other fields to become a clinical research professional and in other areas as well of medical sciences. And I've become useful not only to the mission community, but also to the other communities that God has called me to serve with Christians. But my family didn't take it to be good news.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah.
I would like you to tell us about Malawi. You went as a missionary to Malawi,
Yes.
right? How did you get to Malawi, and how did you use your vocation as a missionary in Malawi?
Well, having discovered that God is prepared or calling me to use my training and skills in missions, the next question is where and how. Mm-hmm. And started praying for where and what right platform would be able to use someone like me with this kind of training that others will find useful or serve others. And so I started, searching and asking questions of whether there are organizations that do this. And that is where God led me to knowing about SIM and what they do and where they are serving. And so I went and searched for career opportunities with SIM, and I saw that they have quite a lot of career opportunities. And at that time, there were health ministries and there were many other opportunities. So I was I just went straight to health ministries and asking myself whether or not they would need someone like me. And there it was. They needed medical outreach technologies or technicians or scientists in about 5 countries: in Angola, Malawi, Zambia, Niger, in South Sudan. And I felt, wow, quite a lot of places that are needing someone like me, and it is urgent. And I felt, wow, God, I'm here doing nothing, trained with these skills, and yet there are places where they need of me and I'm not there. How do I find myself there? How will you use me? Place like that. And so I reached out to SIM Nigeria at that time, and also I was given the contact to reach out to then when they started the SIM West Africa office. And so I reached out to them with questions, and they were very kind to answer my questions, and later on started the process of mobilizing or recruiting me to serve in one of those countries. And in the end, I wanted to go to Angola, but anyway, it couldn't happen because I didn't know why.
If I may interrupt you for a second, Stephen,
Yes, yes.
what kind of questions did you ask? So you had questions and you needed answers. What kind of questions did you ask?
So I asked them if, well, I told them this is this is me and my background, and this is my calling, and don't know if they can find someone like me useful in one of the fields, and all that. And they were happy to reach out to say, wow, this is actually one of those first times they will have emails like this for people who wanting to use their skills and trainings in serving others, where there are needs. And so I felt it was like a connection, between myself and them. They're looking for someone like me as well. And so I said, well, let's begin. Where do we begin? They sent me the form, filled out the form. It took quite a while to get processed, but finally God accepted, and I started preparing. So I felt like God has started preparing me right from when I was in school up until the time that He made the journey more clearer on where and how I'm going to get to the field. Yeah, so I get to choose Malawi because the need was more in Malawi than I think it was in Angola at that time. So I felt like because of this great need, I would love to have God sent me to Malawi. And started the process. Took some time, about one and a half years for me doing partnership, development and relationship building, and also getting ready to serve in Malawi. And after some time, God have it that I was to leave for Malawi. And I left for Malawi to serve with Partners in Hope Medical Center in Lilongwe, where I was to serve with the lab team and also the hospital community. So I was right there serving in the lab as one of those key persons that will help him in molecular biology. We do viral loads for patients living with HIV and AIDS, and that is just different categories of patients, adults and children and all that. And so I jumped right in because they were short-staffed, and jumped right in to help in the process, diagnosis, and also develop creative solutions that are unique to the field, and also do life-on-life impacts, for with the staffs there. My routines will be morning from 8 to 11, working in the molecular lab, and after that, 11, I'll go to the wards, the patient wards, and chat with the patients who are there, pray with them if they want to be prayed with, and also encourage those who are taking care of those patients. And sometimes I have books with me, bedside reading books that will encourage scripturally based books that will encourage the patients and all that. So, and they are always happy to have me come around. What I always do is greet them, tell them who I am and what I'm doing there, and that I'm there to serve them. They're always happy to have me come around and pray. And I remember one time, one of the patients wanted to speak with me, and his condition was very critical. So the wife came looking for me, but before I came in, unfortunately, it passed on. And so I prayed with the wife, and she told me, the book you gave me, was very encouraging. I read it. It's encouraged my heart, prepared me even with my husband's condition. And I spoke to him about it. And I'm glad that he was able to understand what God was doing. And now he's with the Lord. And I just thank God for bringing you here. And so that was my encouragement that day. Not just being stuck in the lab, doing lab works and all that, or work fighting myself through biological samples and all that, but that I could go out and put a smile on some people in the patient wards, and also have them feel like there's somebody here to serve them and to lead them as well. So yeah, that's one aspect. And then I'll also have another unit in the hospital that reach out to communities and children in particular, like I said, who are orphans or are living with HIV and AIDS without them actually knowing. So from, let's say, age 5, 6 to age 12, where some of them are fully disclosed, they've come to age of disclosure about their status, and some of them who are not yet disclosed, but they're in the program and coming twice in a month to do some sports, have some trauma-informed care. So I was introduce sporting activities and some trauma-informed care to the team members, and then play with the kids, and also have them, do some health talks about how they can adhere to their meds. And that has been really helpful to the hospital community for me to have come from Nigeria to support as a missionary and also as a medical laboratory scientist in that place. Also serving in the spiritual life community, the hospital, the Christians in the hospital always have me come also do Bible studies or lead a devotion of sorts. And that was really encouraging to me, knowing that God found me useful in many other ways other than what I'm trained or skilled to do.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Stephen. And I'm grateful that you've spoken about specific things you would do as a missionary, beyond being in the lab and testing people and giving results to the relevant, doctors for medication and stuff. And I would like you to talk to a professional who is probably in the mission field and they feel, or they're struggling with balancing the professional side of, I need to do my job in the hospital or in the office where I'm supposed to be, and still reach out. How would, what advice would you give someone who has been a missionary and still a professional in your own field? How do you merge those two in a very deliberate way? I don't know if that question is clear. How do you merge that in a way that nothing suffers? Your work doesn't suffer, but you also know, I am here as a missionary, I need to reach out. How does someone merge that?
Yeah, so this is very key. To be a professional, it's very good, it's important. But being a professional missionary on the field is even of a greater good. But sometimes you need to find the balance, like you said. First of all, am I being called by God to do this? Because you'll be tempted, because you're trained and you're skilled to do a particular thing, and you'll be saying, oh, well, this is what I know how to do best, or what I can only do. I can't do any other thing. What I would say is, if you are a professional, you are trained, you know how to do something well, you have a great passion, you've identified a need, and you're part of that need right now, or you're fitting into that need. I would say that you're already on the good start, or you're on the right track. But you have to have an open mind. You have to be flexible. You don't have to confuse your calling, which is your vocation, your mission, and actually your calling to be with Christ. Because first of all, you're called to be with Christ. We're called to obedience, called to service, called to forgiveness, called to salvation. Yes, first of all. So if we have registered this in our mind that we've been called by God first, then we can now ask him, what he can use, what we know, or what we are skilled, or what we are trained to use it. Sometimes it could be, yes, what you're trained to do and you're able to deliver that very well. And there's no problem with that. Sometimes it could be through giftings or some things you have identified that you could do very well as well, and others are seeing in you and they want you, to use that as well. So be open, be flexible, and let God guide you, in creating that margin and how you can be of good help to your team and to the people God has called you to serve.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. That is wonderful. And I'm thinking about someone who may be feeling, okay, it's easy to be a missionary when you are a medical missionary, but I am just an accountant. How can I be a missionary while I am, I'm just about counting numbers? So do you think there are vocations that cannot be missionaries, and how would you speak to someone who feels like, oh, my profession is just too basic, I can't be a missionary? What would you tell them?
Okay, that is a good question. Well, in Ephesians 4:11 and many of the scriptures that's spoken about calling, God's guidance to our purpose, why we're created, and to some He's particularly given them a different kind of work, to some, a different profession and all that. But say you have a passion, okay? You have a passion and you know what, you do something very well. That is what you love to do. That's your calling, all right? Now, as a Christian, that's very important, okay? If you have identified a calling because of what you know how to do best or what you're good at, that is very important. But what is even more important is when you realize that there's a caller and there's someone called, and that as a Christian you respond to the call, and that caller is God Himself. So God is the one who has given you that knowledge, that gifting, that skill, and you've identified and you know how to do it best, and you're wondering, where will I use it? How will I use it for God's purposes, for His kingdom, and for others to be served and be blessed by it? So you just have to understand that it's a call, that's what you're doing, that you love to do. And it only becomes a mission when you accept it as a task God is giving you to reach out to other people who are in need of it. And so your vocation becomes exactly what you know how to do best, and where you are found or identified to use that gifting, which has become your mission. And so yes, it has to do with you recognizing that God has called you first to Himself, and that He has given you giftings, and those can be used to serve others. The gifting that is given to us is not for the common good of all. It's not for myself. Okay, if I'm gifted to teach, it's not because I would teach myself, so I can teach other people. And if you have the gift of prophecy, it's not to prophesy for yourself. If you have a gift of miracles or discernment of spirits, it's not for yourself. If you have a gift of evangelism, you will not evangelize to yourself. You will have to go out there to evangelize to others. So if you're an accountant, you won't be only accounting for yourself, but you will become a faithful steward to what God will entrust to you, or people that He will entrust to you. So first of all, realize that it is God who gives those gifts, the skills that you have, knowledge, and then recognize the needs, the vast need that is out there, and find a fitting in that, and acknowledge the fact that it is God who calls people and guides them into those needs. Okay, and by so doing, that as a Christian, you have responded to God's call to be with Him, and you have responded to God's call to serve other people.
Thank you. That's a wonderful answer. And from your experience, from what you told us, when you went and spoke to the same office, and you found that they needed someone of your gifting and your skills, and so you you fitted well in what they needed. It was easy for you. I'm thinking about someone who doesn't get that opening where his exact training is being required in a particular mission field, but they still feel they would want to be missionaries. What advice would you give them? What should they just say? No, I don't think that's my skill, or what would you tell them?
So, well, like I said, it's good to identify or recognize where you fit in God's call in your life. Is it in the marketplace? Is it at home? Is it across borders? And what type of need? Okay. And are you looking to fit into? And if you say that I'm a teacher, I'm called to be in the classroom, okay, for example, you're having the mindset that teaching can only happen in a classroom, okay, and anything outside of that may not be teaching, okay, but it will be important for you to know and also be open to know in different ways that you could become useful, or you could actually teach without actually enclosing yourself in a box. Many of us have the orientation that we have a different orientation about Christian missions, especially I would say in our African context. And so because we have different orientation about Christian missions, so the reaction will also different. Okay, so when someone goes out there mobilizing, saying we need people, different types of skills and trainings to serve in different ways on the field, the first thing that comes to people's mind is that going to be paid? Is that a paid job? And if it is not paid, then I don't consider that as something I want to do. Others who say, well, yes, I'm looking for a place where I can actually use my giftings or my skills. But when they begin the process and see how challenging or tedious that may be, they feel like, well, this is not for me. Or what the normal answer you hear from people, from the community of people that I know, will be, I'm not called to be in missions. Okay, it's very easy for you to get answers like that. But from experience, someone like me, I feel like whenever I get answers like that, I feel like, well, this person is clearly confused and they don't know about God's calling upon their life. If they know, then they wouldn't say that they are not called to missions. And there's a difference between understanding God's call upon your life and the task He's giving you to do, and the mission we call in God and say, okay, you're called to be a missionary out in the field or wherever. I don't want to do that, okay? But whatever you do, wherever you are, whatever business you're into, it's your mission, okay? You have a mission, you have a vision, you have a goal, you want to accomplish that. So what is God's mission for you? What is God's purpose for you? And if you come to know that, then you know you're called to serve God in missions, whether you're at home or wherever you find yourself, regardless of wherever you find yourself, that you're there to represent God, to reflect who Jesus is, and to serve faithfully, in all your undertakings.
Thank you. That is wonderful, Stephen. I think that is encouraging for somebody who may have been in doubt of the usage of their skill in the mission field. And what are your spiritual? Sorry.
Yes, I wanted to add that. Yes, it will be good for them to know that they can do it. All right. Most of them are discouraged that they can't do that because they feel like they're not well trained, or they're not qualified, or they don't have what it takes to do that. But I think it's not all about what we can do best. It's about God qualifying us for that which is calling us to do. So it is only God who qualifies you and I, that task that He's preparing you and I to do. But if we base on what we are qualified or what we can do, it would be based on our own human institution, of what we can do or what we can think of. But But when we base our thinking based on God's instructions of doing things, then He is the one to qualify us. And so just know that whatever gifting you have, whatever little or big thing you're doing, it is God who qualifies you to do that. And that you can do it. With Christ, you can do all things if you allow Him, if you avail yourself, if you just let Him use you, He will, and He will guide you into being useful in His kingdom.
Thank you. That is very encouraging.
Yes.
That is very encouraging. Sorry, Stephen, yes?
I'm going to answer the next question you're asking me about spiritual gift.
Yes, your spiritual gifts. What are your spiritual gifts, and how do your spiritual gifts marry with your vocation? Do they marry at all?
Yeah, of course, they do. Not all the time, but I would say that, okay, I have three major or more prominent gifts. One is faith, increasing faith, and then the second one is discernment of spirit. The third one is administration, and I have compassion and all that. The rest comes in, but in terms of ranks, increasing faith, discernment of spirit, leadership, administration, this comes into play. And so in my training, medical outreach science, you have to be highly detailed. You have to pay attention to things very well, so you don't make mistakes when you're following a procedure in doing conducting a test or carrying out a test to know what the problem of the patient is, and if I don't have faith, if I don't believe that God will help me to do my work well and to identify the problem that this person is going through, I do not think that the other team members, the doctors, the other clinicians will be able to really understand also, because we'll all be beating around the bush, because what the medical lab person does in the lab consists of 75% of most of the decisions, that the physicians will do because of the lab work. So if I don't believe that God has called me to be able to fit into that need, finding a solution, for someone's condition, the doctors wouldn't be able to manage that patient well, and they will end up treating the patient empirically, which of course, in most cases, it may help and may not help. But if you find out or know the true cost of the condition that that person is going through, then you'll be able to manage the case properly. And that is the person's, satisfaction, that he's come, he's sick, but he's found his problem and he's been able to be treated. So yes, faith is important. You need to believe that it is God who gives that wisdom or knowledge to be able to do what you're doing. Discernment of spirits between right and wrong, between what is good and what is bad. I can tell if something is wrong or something. I mean, beyond just the knowing between right and wrong. Okay. God always gives me 2 steps ahead, so I get to find out something before somebody knows. And then even before they get to know, they can say, "Oh, I'd already known this and I'd done these steps," and they're like, "Wow, we did it though." And then if there's something wrong somewhere, I'll be able to say, "Look, beware of this, beware of that." And guess what? If they never hear or never understand what I'm saying, it eventually happens. They'll say, "Oh, this person said this actually," and it did happen. And not like it's a prophecy, but I'm able to discern that something like this will be happening, and it's going to be right or it's going to be wrong, good or evil. And I didn't know I could lead. I didn't know I could serve or administer well until I found myself on the field, serving alongside other people as well. And that has also been one of my strengths. Not that I always want to lead, no, but I love to serve everyone on the field. If that would be, the best way for me is just serve everyone on the field, not to occupy the seat or be in that position. Yes.
That is wonderful. We are called to be servants anyway. And thank you so much, Stephen, for speaking to us today. And I'm reminded that, all the disciples of Jesus had different vocations. There were fishermen, tax collectors, Luke was a doctor, and they all came together to spread the gospel. So whatever vocation you found yourself in, it's useful in the kingdom of God.
Yes.
Plug in and you may discover things like Stephen has discovered that he could lead. He didn't know he had the gift of administration until he got into missions. Thank you so much, Stephen. Any last word in the next couple of seconds as we come to the end of the conversation?
Yes, you mentioned how Jesus modeled the life that we are living or following now, and how he's called the disciples, and how they accepted those calls. You say, "Come follow me," and they will leave whatever they're doing, and they will follow. So the last thing I would say is that while it's important to understand God's call, right? The calling to follow Christ lies in the root of every other calling. Okay. The disciples followed Christ regardless of what they were doing. They left everything, but they didn't leave their skills. They went with their skills as well. And that became useful. And so don't remember that the calling to follow Christ lies in the roots of any other calling. Okay. So you can be whatever. You can be a doctor, you can be a nurse, you can be an accountant, you can be an engineer, you can be a teacher. But if you have not come to follow Christ as it's calling you to be, then you may be lacking in some roots, like in the foundations of how he can use that calling that you have for the greater good of many people who are in need. So please be open, be available, reach out to us. There are many, many positions or many opportunities out there in ways God could use you. And trust God in the process, and be flexible in ways he could use you. You become one of those people that will put a smile in the eyes of many people.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for speaking to us today. If you have been feeling like you want to be a missionary, but you don't know where to start, please reach out to us and we'll offer you guidance as the Lord enables us. Thank you so much, Stephen, for speaking to us, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Mercy. It's been a great time conversing with you.